Hey everyone, George here, and welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to talk a little bit about raising discus fry and answer a few questions that have been asked to me about this particular pair right here. Now these guys are a pretty young pair, and I'm very surprised, to be honest with you, that only after spawning maybe 3 or 4 times that they have successfully been raising these young and not eating the eggs or the babies, and doing a very good job of parenting and taking turns at it at that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is making sure that when you are spawning and breeding discus, that you are making sure that you are doing it within the framework of what I think is the right way to raise discus babies, and that's important to me. The one thing that you have to do is you really need to stay within the guidelines of professional breeding and make sure that you have a pair of discus that are the same of the same lineage and bloodline, and that the babies are going to be something that are going to go out into the world and reproduce and carry on that lineage over time. Now I want to zoom in a little bit here to show you something that I think is one of the coolest things in the world of breeding fish, and that is this is one of the only I think 2 or 3 fish in the world that allow the babies to eat the slime coat off them. And as you can see, there's just as many babies on the opposite side of this fish as there are on this side. So it's a very, very interesting process. And one of the things that I think is so cool is not only is the slime coat nutrition and valuable food for these babies, but it is also a slime coat that changes over the period of time that these babies are growing with their parents. Now, one of the things that people ask me all the time is, what do you mean by that? Well, what I'm trying to suggest to you is that the slime coat on here changes over time with both the mother and the father, and it changes its nutritional value according to the needs of the fry and the babies at the time. How do they do that? I don't know. That's a science mystery that really no one has been able to figure out. It's just a natural phenomenon that takes place. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is allowing these baby fry to also have some supplemental food such as brine shrimp and that kind of thing as soon as possible, because over time this becomes very burdensome to the parents. And we may have an opportunity to see the mother, which is the female here, shake the babies off onto the male. They will do that when they're kind of tired of them feeding on them. And it's kind of a cool thing to see, because they'll rush off in a quick way in which it throws the babies right onto the male. And but I want to get back to what I was saying about supplementing the food for these fish, because it's so important that you do that. And as soon as they are able to, you want to make sure that you're offering up brine shrimp. And I started doing this about 2 days ago, and I also noticed that some of these baby discus or fry are going down and going after some flake. You want to make sure that you're giving foods to the adults that the babies can start to eat as well. So you don't want to offer up like pellets and that kind of thing. Now you see how she rushed off and she turned those babies right over to the male. That is a very cool phenomenon that takes place in the discus world. And as you can see now, she has taken a break, and she has offered up the babies to the male so that he can take care of them for a while. And I noticed that the males don't really spend as much time letting the babies eat on them as much as the females do, and that may be just a natural instinct for the females to care for the babies in a more productive way. But getting back to what I was saying, offer up some foods that are really nutritious and have nutritional value to the point where they're getting foods that they're going to eventually eat. Now, flake is probably the most important thing. You don't want to get these discus relying 100% on brine, because it'll be really hard to get them off that. And that's just something you can avoid by offering up other foods. The babies will eat what the parents eat. If the parents are able to get flake into the tank and eat it, the babies will go down, and I've seen them do it. They'll go down and they'll start eating off some of that flake on the bottom. These are about 19 days old, maybe 20 days, 21 days. I'm not positive exactly as to when this particular group in this tank. I have other tanks with discus in them as well that are less advanced, but I wanted to show you this particular tank because it's a very successful situation that we have going here, and I'm very proud of it. And as I said, the babies are doing really, really well. Now, I want to talk another thing about water changes, because people ask me that all the time. I change the water about 25% twice a day in this tank, and the reason for that is I want to make sure that I am getting a really good healthy environment for these babies to grow in. As you can see, there's a little bit of waste down here from the fish. What I do is, when I do that 25% water change, which I'm probably going to do here right after this video, is I take like a turkey baster and kind of suck up that stuff, and that really keeps the clean bottom of this tank, and also try to wipe the sides down as best I can. Now, what I have going here is something that's very unusual. This is corrugated plastic, and these are inserts, so I can take these out and clean them anytime I want to. If I get a new batch of discus spawn, or I have a new breeding pair, I can take these and move these around to any 20-gallon. These are water box 20 gallons. One of the things you're going to have to do if you do use a water box 20-gallon is put these inserts in, because you have to have a white background so that these fish baby fish discus can see the parents in there. They have to be the darkest thing in the tank. You don't want any lines that are dark around the edges or anything like that, because that will just create an environment where these fish will not be able to find the parents. As you can see, I have even taped off with white tape the edges around here, because sometimes the babies will go to that silicone area that looks dark, and they'll be confused by that even. And these are, of course, rimless tanks. They're amazing tanks by Water Box. They're 20 gallons. I have about 15 of these, and I use them strictly for breeding purposes. I have had some 20 gallons by Water Box that I have used for display tanks as well, but I have sort of moved towards using them strictly for the purpose of using them to breed these fish. Now, one of the things you're going to have to do, and I want to bring you up here to show you, is the very back area here. I'm going to move this out of the way. Is this vent area where these baby discus could easily get lost in there. What you want to do is you want to take, and as you can see here, there's some screening that I have put down in there, and there's a barrier so that that screening cannot move around. That way the babies cannot get up into the back of this tank in any way, shape, or form and have a problem with being stuck there. And also, by putting the aeration, which is something you need in this tank anyway, by putting that over the top of that, that sort of makes these babies not want to go to that part of the tank, and naturally keeps them away. Keeping the tank clean is so important. I want to emphasize that, because it is one of the most important things. Like I said, there's a little bit of feces down here. Now, you just saw again where the male shook them off onto the female. Now the female is going to take her turn again and allow the fry to eat off her slime coat. But getting back to what I was saying here, make sure that you're cleaning this stuff up here when you do a water change. That's not going to be a big problem. There's always going to be a certain amount of waste in your breeding tank, and that's just something you have to deal with. But keeping the water changes done is going to keep a lot of diatom algae out of here. It's going to keep waste out of the tank and make it so that the water is nice and clean for not only the parents but for the fry, most importantly, because they're at a very fragile stage. Now, there's this thing called the 4-week death of baby discus, and I have not experienced that, but I have seen situations where friends of mine who are breeding have run into a situation where within 4 weeks, for some reason, the babies aren't getting enough nutrition and they start to die off or they get diseased. Now, one of the things that you're going to have to do is make sure that you medicate your tanks a little bit, just to make sure that you keep any fungal or bacterial situations free from these babies. One of the things you can do is just simply keep the tank clean, and that will be a natural way of preventing any kind of disease from taking over and killing off your babies. These are very, very healthy discus fish here. They're doing a fantastic job, and the fry are extremely healthy as well. I don't know how many are in here, but I've only lost one out of this whole group. I counted the eggs, and I think there was 56 or something like that. And I think when I took a picture the other day, that's a really good way of counting your babies. I think there were 55 in here. I did find a dead baby in here about 3 or 4 days ago. I don't know what happened. It was right after a water change, so it's possible that the temperature wasn't exactly right and shocked the fish. So I'm being extra careful with my water changes to make sure that the temperature is as close as I can possibly get within a degree. I check it very, very closely before I ever put water back into the tank. So I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope I answered a few of your questions about breeding discus and showing you what a successful breeding tank looks like and what a successful pair of breeding discus look like. These guys are absolutely beautiful fish, and they're going to have some very nice looking offspring, and I think you'll enjoy that. So in a few days, I'm going to do another update on this, because we're going to reach kind of a milestone here, and we're going to start to see these fry become a little bit more independent and probably eating a lot more off from the foods that I offer up in the tank, which is brine and so forth. Now I'm going to take you in for a minute and show you my brine setup, just so you see what's going on with that. When we come back, we'll go take a look at the brine. So I have a pretty simple brine setup here, and I wanted to show that to you. It's basically brine by San Francisco Bay. I use that up, and then I have a package of brine, decapsulated brine, in this bag here, which is a pretty good sized bag. I do have to add salt with that one. The San Francisco brand does come with its own salt in there. So, you know, a teaspoon and a half of aquarium salt along with the brine does a fantastic job. As you can see, these brine here are about 18 to 20 hours old, and many of them have hatched already, and I'm already feeding them to not only the discus, but we have a tank in here with, as you can see, some baby angels in here. These are Philippine blues. This tank is full of these. I'm just going to show you this one corner right here where this little group is gathered, just to show you. These are about 20 days old, and they're starting to show you know, what they're going to look like. They're starting to grow those caudal fin and the dorsal fin and that sort of thing. But I did want to show you this this brine setup that I have. You don't even have to have this sophisticated of a system. You can basically, this basically has a temperature gauge on it too. We're reading right at around between 80 and 82 degrees, somewhere in there. That's perfect. And this little light right here is what's heating this up, believe it or not. That's keeping this at that temperature just by being that distance away from it. I calibrated that before I ever started my brine setup, and that's been working really, really well. But one of the things that you can do is you can just simply take a 2-liter bottle like this and leave it in its condition by, you know, just taking the top off it, putting brine and that in there, the salt in there, and running a tube down in there with an air stone on it that just keeps that aeration going, and a simple light like this, and it's just that easy to keep your brine going and be able to harvest those brine after 18 to 24 hours typically, and you have a good source. I like to have 2 of these going at all times because you don't want to run out of brine and have a situation where your fish are not getting the food that they need. You got to be a little bit careful because your babies will gorge on this stuff, and you can end up with some serious problems with them getting bloat and dying from eating too much because they don't know when to quit. So you've got to be careful how much brine you put into the tank so that you don't end up with fish that are getting problems with bloat and bladder, swim bladder problems and that sort of thing. Well, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it. We're going to end this video by going back in and showing you that tank one more time, and we'll talk a little bit how you can subscribe to the channel and that sort of thing. So we just missed the mom throwing the babies onto the dad here. When we left a few minutes ago, we came back, the mom had just thrown them on the dad and the dad had just thrown them back, and now we've got the opposite situation going again here. So again, as I said, these guys are doing really well, and like I mentioned earlier, we do 2 water changes a day, about 25%, and clean up any kind of waste like we have over in this area here with just simply a turkey baster. Just suck it up, get it out of the tank, and if you see any kind of algae growing on the walls of these inserts that are in here, make sure you wipe all that down and wipe the bottom of the tank down as well. Now the bottom of this tank is very clean, as you can see. There aren't any issues with that, but thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. Please leave your comments down below. I would appreciate any questions that you have. I will be glad to get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. This is, like I said, is a very simple setup for breeding discus. The other thing I wanted to mention is when you have a cone in there for breeding, or whatever you're using, a ceramic pot, a cone that you've purchased maybe on Amazon or something like that, or something like a piece of slate that you've put in there, whatever they're laying their eggs on, you want to make sure once the babies become free swimmers and attach themselves to the parents that you take that out of there. That can be also a problem for the babies not seeing the parents correctly as well, especially if that brown color is very similar to the color of the discus in the tank. You want the parents to be, like I said, the darkest object in the tank. Thanks for joining me today. Give me a thumbs up on this one. Leave your comments down below. Like I said, I'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Also, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. I really do. And share with your friends. Thanks for joining me today. That is it. And I hope you enjoyed this. Hope I taught you a little something about breeding discus. We will see you on the next one. Until then, we're out of here.